Speaking skill 12. Sample response, example question 4A. Page 280.
The lecturer gives two examples of how we see things. These examples show the differences between two different photoreceptor cells in our eyes that capture light and color, called rods and cones. The first example is that when there isn't much light, such as candlelight, everything looks black and white. This is because the rods are the only kinds of cells that are sensitive in dim light, but they can't capture color. Cones sense color, but they can't detect dim light like the low light at night. Next, the professor says that if we look directly at a star that isn't bright, it can disappear. But if we look to either side of the star, we can see it. He goes on to say that this is because the center of our vision has fewer rods that sense dim light. Instead, they are more concentrated to the left or right of the center of the field of vision.
Sample response, example question 4B. Page 281.
The examples given in the lecture describe the pay and benefits of some employees and describe what equity theory says about their job satisfaction. Equity theory says that people compare what they get out of the company to what they put in, and this is called return for contribution. The professor talks about two employees that get equal work and offices, but one, Bill, gets more pay and less flexibility in his schedule, and the other, Sally, gets the opposite. Equity theory says that if Bill likes money more than flexibility, he'll be happy, and if Sally likes flexibility more, she'll be happy too. They'll both feel that they get the same or better returns for contribution than the other one. Then the professor contrasts this with another employee, Tom, who does the same work but for less money and in a worse office. The theory says that Tom will be unsatisfied because he gets less return for contribution than the other employees.
Speaking review exercise, skills 9 through 12. Page 284. Now listen to a lecture on the same subject in an American literature class.
Two great works that represent some of the ideas of transcendentalism are Ralph Waldo Emerson's Nature from 1836 and Woman in the 19th Century, published in 1845 by Margaret Fuller. Nature was a very influential book on the relationship between humans and the natural world that really defined some of the transcendentalist principles. Emerson wrote with a uniquely American style when he was describing nature. It was deliberately different from the European writing that had such an overwhelming influence in the early days of the United States. His theme was about understanding truth and religious experience by being a part of nature. The book was a reaction against the unemotional, rational approach to religion, which was dominant at the time in New England. Instead, the book proposed that we could achieve our spiritual potential through intuition and inspiration in nature. And he wasn't just talking about taking a short hike. He meant that, all alone in the woods, you should work hard to sustain a little farm and live simply in a cabin. He insisted that, being away from the distractions of civilization, people could understand truth intuitively and could improve and develop themselves as individuals. Similarly, Margaret Fuller's work, Woman in the 19th Century, encouraged women to develop themselves as individuals. It's the first American feminist work of literature, which emphasized that women have as much of a right and a responsibility as men to develop their own spiritual individuality so as to be as good as men. Along the lines of social justice, she also spent a good portion of her book supporting the cause of abolition, the complete end of slavery. She felt that one could perceive intuitively that slavery was not moral. Thus, it was an individual's responsibility, man or woman, to oppose it.
How do the books written by Emerson and Fuller illustrate some of the main principles of transcendentalism?